Hey, what's going on YouTube? Here in the shop, working on my 1974 Ariens snow throw. She's about 42 years old, give or take. And in efforts to keep her throwing snow for another 42 years, I've been doing a little maintenance on it. I just picked it up recently. I've replaced the axle bushings or bearings, plain bearings if you will, new drive belt and some other stuff like that. I've taken it apart to clean the various necessities that make her throw snow. I've been waiting on for the UPS guy to deliver my new friction disc from the eBay Amazon.com Al Gore invented interweb. I'm waiting on that, and I kind of did a little more in-depth looking, and I've found a couple bearings that I believe to be suspect in this here aluminum housing that houses the main drive pulley from the motor. It also runs the friction plate or drive plate that rides on the friction disc. Well, these bearings, they got a little jiggle to them. Spin them by hand. They don't sound like you want good bearings to sound. So while I'm waiting on parts, and I've dove this far, whatever, in this far, I wanted to get them replaced. So it's 4 bolts, get it out of that housing over there, or not the housing, this is the housing. To get it out of the snowblower, it's 4 bolts. This here hole will be your savior. It allows you to get a socket to the 4 bolts that hold this aluminum housing in, get it broke loose, untucked, and removed from that carcass of a snowblower over there. You're gonna have to have the axle out, disengage the dry belt, as you can see over there. I can't take it all the way out because to do that, it kind of appears that you need to disassemble the tractor side. That's what Ariens calls it. The tractor side from the snow throw side. I ain't got time for that, so here it sits. If you tip your snowblower up in a fashion like this, mine's sitting on a 50 cal ammo can that you can't see. If you tip yours up like that, drain the oil, drain the gas. You don't have to drain the gas, I guess. From other YouTube videos that I've watched, you can put a Ziploc bag or a rubber glove over the fuel fill and then screw the cap back on. That prevents gas from leaking out through the breather that's in your gas cap, but I didn't have much fuel in there anyway, and I just purchased the thing, so hey, a little fresh gas isn't gonna hurt. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. This little guy right here. The bearings, I'm not liking the way they're feeling. I'm not liking the way they're sounding when I spin it by hand. I'm a machinist for a living, and I couldn't find any YouTube videos or tutorials such as the one I'm making, hence why I'm making it. It's my first YouTube video, so don't heckle me too bad. Even if you do, I don't give a shit. But basically what I found is you've got this Lovejoy type coupling unit that couples the, well, obviously you've got this big pulley runs to the motor, and then it couples the auger and impeller to the motor, and that's what starts sucking the snow and blowing the snow. On real close inspection, I was looking at this Lovejoy coupler trying to figure out how I wanted to get it attached, or detached rather. I found with the way that it appeared everything was pulling, I kind of started speculating that these might be left-handed threads. With a pick and my machinist background, I decided, yep, she's left-handed. So I grabbed a piece of aluminum bar stock and clamped the drive plate to said piece of aluminum with about 4 cant twist clamps in a bench vise. I used aluminum. I was going to use a piece of wood, but I was concerned that if I clamped too hard, you know, the wood has give, and if it was warped, that I could potentially crack or, yeah, pretty much crack the drive plate. So as you can see here, I've got it all clamped up in my my bench vise with a set of cant twist clamps, and with it held like this and what I thought to be left-handed threads on that coupling nut, I went ahead and I grabbed it both sides, all my might, and I turned it clockwise. You would think that would tighten it, but like I said, I kind of thought that they were left-handed threads, and sure enough, it broke loose. I'm loosening it right now. I'm kind of cheating because I do have it already disassembled. You can see the lower bearing closest to the drive plate is sticking out a little bit. If yours hasn't been torn apart yet, you're not going to see that. Now, if I wasn't able to break it loose by hand, you know, I'd have got my 24-inch pipe wrench or a pry bar and put it in between these cogs here and tried the same thing. But sure enough, the previous owner kept it pretty well lubed. The threads were in good shape. They weren't all seized up, and this pulley came loose. I kind of thought for a while, you can't see them, but there are three, the camera phone won't focus. I thought maybe the 3 bolts had something to do with it. Well, no, the 3 bolts hold this sheave or pulley onto this drive cog. So once I got it broke loose, it spun loose just like that. There are the 3 bolts I was referencing earlier. And I was left with this once that came off. Now, obviously there's going to be a little more bolt sticking out because it's not, the housing isn't pressed all the way on that lower bearing. A little sneak peek of what's going to happen next, I guess. But anyways, I unclamped it from my fixture here, and I held it over my little table. I put a towel down and proceeded to give it a handful of good whacks with a rubber face mallet on the end of this bolt. I didn't want to mar the threads. I whacked a couple times with a brass hammer, I'm not going to lie, but you know, even a well-used brass hammer, that's still pretty hard, and you could run the risk of damaging the thread. So I grasped this housing or assembly like this over a bench. You want to do it over a bench, just because between whacking it real hard, I mean, mine shot out like a bat out of hell, landed on the table, and you know, that might be disturbing to some people, but I was really, really happy that it came, you know, a little bit of surface rust or whatever was holding it in place. But anyways, I whacked on this here by and held the housing. Oh, now it won't come off. There it did. Like I said, it's kind of tight. So basically what happened was I was left with this aluminum housing in one hand, and this remained on my bench with a towel because I didn't want to mar the surface on the friction drive plate. After a little bit of thinking, these threads were left-handed. I couldn't decide if I thought those were left or right-handed, but it's no different than two lock nuts together in my small pea brain. So I figured these are probably left-handed too, going from, well, I guess I couldn't tell how this shaft was held on, so I assumed, seeing as how this bearing is captured between this shoulder and the friction plate, and I don't know if you all can see this, but this bearing does have a fair amount of play. I mean, like I said, it's been throwing snows for 42 years. It's probably about due. So with the assumption that this shaft had some left-handed threads that threaded into this, it's a blind hole from the bottom. You can't see anything. I couldn't see any keyways, anything like that. I grasped this portion right here with a pipe wrench, and I proceeded to crank, righty-loosey with the pipe wrench, not worrying too much about marring up this surface because it's between the bearings. I mean, there wasn't even grease, there was nothing in between. I grasped it and I turned it righty loosey, and sure as shit, they were left-handed too. I mean, I got kind of lucky, I'm not gonna lie. The shaft came loose. This was pretty real to what you're gonna find, unless yours is seized up. There's a shoulder on both ends that the bearing inner race sits on. They're 3/4 inch, shit, I don't know, 16, is that fine thread? Whatever, 3/4 16 left-handed threads, doesn't matter. You know, set that aside, and you're left with that housing, or not housing, but the friction disc, the bearing, and I've got that one still stuck in there. I'm not going to go into that in my video because the average person, if you're tackling this project, you can get a bearing out of a housing like that. You know, presses in there, find the right size socket, and pop that bitch out. So now here I am. I know what size the bearings are. They're 3/4 inch ID, 1 3/4 OD. I double checked with my local parts stores. That's not a real common size. The common size that they were able to have in stock were 3/4 ID, 1 5/8 OD, and they could get it for me in a day or two or whatever. So I got on McMaster-Carr and got a couple of the heavy duty or whatever they McMaster reference them. Evident, like I said, it's not a common size. I got a couple of them coming, and hopefully I can just put it back together in reverse order and have the old 74 ready to throw some snow when the snow falls. Hopefully my rambling didn't get get too long. Like I said, I couldn't find any videos on what I was trying to do. So I'm hoping this helped a couple of you guys out there. Thanks for watching.